The adaptive joker hypothesis. What is that?
That is the name I gave to my theory on play behavior, basically. I did for my master's and for my PhD, I studied play behavior. And the question you ask yourself as an evolutionary biologist, as an ethology, is that what's the function of behavior? And so play has typically and continues to very rightly thought as developmental scaffolding, namely something, a behavior that is expensive and risky, but young animals do in order to build up the organism. So play prepares you for the future, play trains skills, all of that is true.
Play fighting in leopards or something like that.
Play fighting in leopards, word play in young humans. As a rule of thumb, you observe how the young of a certain species play, and you can have inferences on, what they do as adults, and play is training for adulthood. So all of that is true. But if you think of the word scaffolding, to me was puzzling because it's like developmental scaffolding. So maybe it's because I come from a family of architects, but I keep thinking a scaffold is something that is used to build a building. And then when the building is done, you remove the scaffold, i.e. the scaffold is useless. It's just aiding you in constructing something. And when the building is ready, you take the scaffold away and the object is the thing, i.e. the building that is ready. And if play is a scaffold for building adult organisms, it means that play should finish once somatic growth finishes. You turn 17, 18, you stop playing. I think, again, this is roughly true in many species. It's not very common that adult animals play. But if you start looking around again with this question of ask the question and then tell me which animals play as adults. And so what would come to mind? Let me ask you that question.
Which animals play as adults?
As adults, yes.
Dolphins would come to mind.
Yeah. Humans,
although I do think...
Obviously.
What was that second one?
Humans.
Oh, I thought you said Cubans. I was like, maybe Cubans. Yeah, sure. They do like salsa. I mean, that kind of looks like dance. I mean, that's playful.
Music, yes.
Yeah, great music. I'm sitting in Austin, Texas. There are actually a lot of amazing Cubans here, which is why maybe that's talking about the sort of attention bias. But humans, although, I mean, one would need to, I think, perhaps take a second to define play. Mm-hmm. So if play is not this, I can't remember the exact modifier you used, but this scaffolding, if it is not that, then what is play, right? It seems like something that doesn't serve an obvious functional purpose that entails some degree of positive emotional display. I mean, I don't know if that's me struggling for a definition, but... No,
you're correct.
How would you define it?
We're mixing two definitions there. So I want to make a distinction when you ask these questions. Tim Ferriss, another famous ethologist, defined the 4 questions. When you think about a behavior, what, why, and from where? So the question I was asking is, what's the evolutionary function of the behavior, which is different from defining it, how does it look today? Okay?
Right, sure.
So if you want to define it, and when you observe something and you want to study it, you need to define it, how does it look today? So you can define it broadly as a behavior that appears cooperative, in the sense that it doesn't look forced. Animals are not doing it under constraint, duress, or obvious aggression. And there might be a sense of enjoyment, and it appears not having an obvious purpose. It has repetitive elements, but these repetitive elements also have variation. And so the element of enjoyment and recombination of elements is part of it.
Okay.
Okay?
Yeah, that makes sense.
And so appearing to having fun, but of course, that's easy when you look at humans, but like you look at reptiles and it's like, how do you know if a snake is having fun? It's like, well...
Yeah, I don't have deep exposure to a lot of animals. I would say canids, certainly you see something resembling play in dogs, in fox, etc. Yeah, wolves, certainly. cats, I mean, there seems to be some type of tailing off in almost every species I think of in terms of play. I mean, maybe you have like old dudes, like 70-year-old humans playing chess in parks and so on, but the types of play change certainly over time. One of the coolest things I've ever seen was video captured by a trail camera in the US of a coyote playing with, it certainly looked like play with a badger.
Yes, I remember that.
They hunt together, and it was jumping around, wagging its tail, dropping into kind of this downward dog like play position, just as a domesticated dog would. And I don't want to take us too far off track, but this is directly mapping from some Northern American Indian mythologies, or what were thought to be mythologies, that had largely never been observed by sort of Western field biologists. And it was kind of thought to be this nonsensical mythology. And then lo and behold, it's actually right there in front of you on camera. It's pretty cool. But I had never observed, I don't think I'd observed much in terms of non-combative interspecies play in that way, right? Because you have like a cat playing with a mouse, but the mouse isn't having a great time.
Sure. No, that would be, there's one animal there having fun and playing, the other one is not. So yeah, very clearly.
So, okay, so those are a few examples that come to mind.
Yeah.
What other examples come to mind for you?
The family of corvids, so ravens, crows, are very playful birds, parrots as well. It's not a coincidence if you look at brain to body size ratio. Both these groups of birds, namely parrots and corvids, are kind of equivalent, if you will, to cetaceans and great apes in their big brains.
Cetaceans, including dolphins.
Yeah, dolphins and whales. So in that, these are animals that don't think of immediate genealogical relationships, but think of the niche again. What niche, what do these animals have in common? They are highly social, they live in complex societies, they have to deal with complexity, they tend to be long-lived. And just if you add the dimension of time, if you're social and are long-lived, it means you have to deal with uncertainty. Because who's your friend? Will they be your friend 2 weeks from now? You haven't seen them. With whom to cooperate, with whom not to cooperate. Social life is complex. And so all of these groups of animals have these things in common. Elephants is another group of animals that also play, and they fall in this broad group of, generally speaking, large-brained, intelligent animals that live for a long time. They are very innovative, but also extremely social. So you have a relationship between sociality and intelligence. And I think the third element there is that play when it's possible, because now we get into the socioecology of play. Play is not always possible, particularly for adults. Many things need to happen for play to make sense. Play has costs and risks, and is more important for the young. So the scaffolding is still true.